Our topic for today is Gordon Ramsay. I'm not exactly sure where to kick this off because he's so prolific. Um,
Mm,
Going back, I don't know how many years, 15 years, something like
Many
that, more.
years. Yeah,
Um,
prolific enough that I was scrolling through Hulu recently, and we've been watching some Gordon Ramsay recently, and the algorithm has picked up on that. And I imagine he must be on camera 330 days out of the year. Like he's never not on camera. He has so many shows. It's like if you go into the food category of probably any streaming app, but especially Hulu, he's got like 7 different shows that are currently like available to you. It's like, and
yeah.
I don't think they are not filming. I don't think it's just like, oh, seasons past of this show that he no longer does. I think he still does every single one of them.
That's
um
my sense as well.
yeah.
And that's not from watching on any streaming platform. It's just from the multitude of videos that are available, like on YouTube, that you can kind of watch secondhand. It just seems like there's always new content from
Right.
one of his many properties that's available to watch.
Yeah, and it's not even just the properties. I don't know. I don't know all of the details of all of his British shows and how those get woven into because he has like these little cooking lessons that appear to be from inside his actual home.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's part of an actual show or if he's just like YouTubing it up, or if he has like a separate house kitchen sort of thing where he just goes to do those. But it's like he has 7 network shows, and then he's got all the content that he's just doing on the side where it's
Mhm.
like, I'm just at home and I'm going to show you how to make fish and chips in 15 minutes, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
The
dude, do
camera
you
crew
ever?
just like lives in his basement so that if he ever has an idea, he just wakes
Yeah,
him up, like rings a bell, ding, ding, ding.
yeah, ding ding,
I'm going
bring
to
them on
show
up.
people how to make scrambled eggs.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I guess it's just proof that an object in motion stays in motion. Like that's
Yeah.
what I gather from him. That's his life, is that I think if he stopped and like sat down, he would die. Like that's pretty
Mhm.
much his way of being at this point.
Well, one of the things that I love about Gordy is that he's an exemplar of a person who fulfills his potential. And I
Mm,
love seeing that when somebody just makes their entire life about this thing that they happen to do exceptionally well, to the extent that they just work, 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 work on that thing. And I just find that really inspiring. I feel like he's like Gordon Ramsay is analogous in a way to like The Rock is to cinema and like kind of the certain brand of action movie and stuff, where
mm.
he's just always in something. There's always a new property featuring The Rock, and you just know that the guy is working constantly, even though he doesn't have to. He could just sit on his hands and sit on his ass for the rest of his entire life and do nothing, obviously. And that's
Yeah,
probably been true for a while, but he chooses not to because his potential needs to be continually fulfilled. And I just think
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. You kind of have to wonder because at some point you're feeding your family and your family's family and generations of that family's family,
Sure.
because and I'm sure that people like Gordon Ramsay and anyone who has that sort of wealth must be considering that
Mhm.
when they do things that kind of raise an eyebrow. Like,
Sure.
I don't know, it's like maybe this is just a bit too far of an example, but like Steph Curry
Mhm.
is one of the best basketball players of all time.
Mhm.
And he has a contract that brings him millions upon millions of dollars every year doing what he does. But yet he's in like CarMax commercials,
Right.
very brief CarMax commercials. And it's like, at first you're like, what are you doing, Steph? Like, why are you even in this commercial? But then it's like, well, that one commercial probably like set up a part of his family for life.
Yeah,
Like the
I
million
imagine that's
dollars
exactly
guy.
how it works. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I've got my 6 nephews. I want to pay for their college. I'm going to do this, whatever
One day
insurance
of
commercial for
Yeah,
30 seconds, and
yeah,
like,
one day of
bam.
work basically for him to show up and
Yeah.
make, half a million or $1 million just for that one spot, and then you're set for life. And I guess that's probably what I see The Rock as more of
Hmm.
doing, is like I see him as knowing that he's a money machine and being a savvy business person, and knowing that like you strike when the iron's hot, like might as well accumulate this while I can.
Right.
But there's something you said about the craft element of it, where
Mm.
if you were to look at The Rock, his craft is his body. Like
Yes.
he's been working on the body for his
Which he is
entire
still
life,
doing
which
just as
which
intensely.
he's
Yeah.
obviously he's in the gyms every single day. Like he doesn't take days off from exercise. That's
Yeah.
just how that works. And I think that's Gordon has managed to merge the two things, where it's like his money making endeavors are related to him refining his craft, where
Mm.
his television show is what pays him the money, but the television show idea is I'm going to go to this, weird corner of Nepal and like learn about these spices that I've never learned about before and learn how to cook this thing. And he has entire shows dedicated to the idea of like, well, I just want to learn new cuisines and like figure out how to do this the best.
Right.
Which is a little different from The Rock just being like, I'm going to do another Fast and Furious movie, or I'm going to do.
I agree there's a difference, but I think I would say just wait for The Rock. I guarantee, like similar to, I think he's going to have a trajectory similar to like Arnold, where like toward the more latter end of his career, when like the huge tentpole movies are kind of like past that phase, you're going to see him do a lot of weird and interesting projects that actually probably stretch his acting ability and show him doing new things in the same way Arnold did. He did some like really odd choices for Arnold. He did that early in his career as well, but I feel like, but I just want to say, I'm echoing what you were saying, kind of just that, not to talk too much about The Rock, but that, yeah, Gordon is definitely like, I appreciate and approve of the fact that he does seem to always be in pursuit of like refining himself and improving himself. And like, like I want to understand this. He takes risks, I would say. Even though the risks are minimal given the safety net he has, but
it's almost like Gordon is a great example for this being an episode about a different thing, which is just like the workaholic, basically.
Sure.
And how some people can dedicate their lives. I don't know. There's a term that is escaping me at this moment. I'm not going to try to remember it because it's a Japanese word, but it's the idea of just like always a little better, always a little better, always a little better every time. So it's like you never stop. And I think to your point, like Gordon is that guy where he's just going to continue to better himself. But it's admirable because I think he does work very hard to make other people better as well.
Yes. Well, one thing we've talked about this just separately from this conversation because, for our viewers, we've been, I would say, fans of Gordon, or at least we've been like regular consumers of Gordon Ramsay's content for some time now. To the extent where, we've done his recipes, we've followed his examples, we sometimes just talk about him or make fun of the way he does something. Where's it going with this? One aspect of his personality is that he has a kind of reputation of, if you don't watch him too closely, if you just have a vague sense of who Gordon Ramsay is, you probably associate him with like he's yelling at and berating people in his kitchen for doing something wrong. But I think like when you look at the entire pattern, I think it's clear that he's not just doing that over what I would call trivialities. Like I think under that there actually is like a real integrity and a real desire for things to like be done the right way in the appropriate way, and I appreciate that level. I mean, I know he plays it up for the camera.
Yeah, it's funny because what you're talking about is basically you could almost do an entire like hour-long conversation just about the nuance of just that, because you have Gordon playing it up for an American audience because they know that what sells is the idea of him calling people a donkey or telling them to piss off or whatever. Like that's what people are coming to watch is, oh, I screwed up the steak. Oh, you fucking idiot. Like get out. That's what they want. So there's nuance to how he behaves, even though I'm sure without cameras on him in his kitchens when he was younger, he probably behaved in a similar way. Because I know that he had, he's classically trained French cuisine. So it's like, I'm sure that he experienced that from the other side, having people throw food at him or pans or whatever. But obviously with a show like that, there's sort of this producer sabotage that must be happening where it's like, we've got basically
great term, by the way.
Yeah, you got four, and I'm just using Hell's Kitchen as the example because that's kind of what we're talking about. Is Gordon's personality in America is this asshole who yells, and that's Hell's Kitchen. So you've got like four actual chefs that can do the thing and actually would be reasonable as winners for the show. And then I think it's just a smattering of people who are okay at cooking or like work in a restaurant that has no standards, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that sets him up for being able to be like, you overcooked the scallops.
People who are chosen or selected for their chemistry, good or bad, with the other contestants and with the rules of the show.
Yes, exactly. So it's, I think to what you were saying is I agree. Once you understand, I don't know, I guess I'm lucky enough or not lucky enough to have actually worked in a kitchen before. Nothing like a fine dining restaurant, but I worked on a line and I was a saute cook for a little while. And I get what it's like when the tickets start coming in and it's stressful, you're in the weeds and your expo is like yelling at you to like, where's the pasta? Like, I need it now. So when you see Gordon getting pissed off about a steak or scallops or fish or whatever it is. It's like, no, he's right though.
Yeah.
He's right. You know, it's not that you're just an idiot. It's that, you know, he's expecting things from you at a certain time and in a certain way, and that's all you have to do. That's
Right.
it.
Well, I feel like he's never unreasonable in his
Exactly. Yeah.
principles.
Yeah. He's never unreasonable. The only way he's unreasonable to human beings for the sake of television is like the name calling and the derogatory sort of thing, which is like obviously no workplace. It's not conducive to any positive workplace, is having somebody who's just going to yell at you constantly. But
Right.
you know, but that's
there's
the
a
show.
reason, I mean, that he's popular and that, you know, Dr. House was popular, is like at a deep level. We kind of like to see people who have screwed up.
Right. Well,
taken to
it's
task
not,
for that. It's not even screw up sometimes. Sometimes it's
yeah. It's both the screw up because you want to see them yell, but there's also the in the back of your mind, and I guess you maybe only know this if you have consumed a lot of Gordon Ramsay, is that like anything that he's asking them to do, he can do.
yeah,
Like he would never, you know, berate somebody's inability to break down a salmon. But it's like, because, and you know that it's okay for him to yell at them for messing it up, because it's like, if you give him a salmon, he'll break it down perfectly.
yeah,
He's an expert at all of those things. And I think that's an interesting thing about like, you never want to get shit talked by a teammate who's worse than you.
right. Well, okay, he has high standards, but he
Yes.
has the skills to back up those standards.
Yeah.
I think that like the word for the inverse of that, where somebody has high standards but no skill, is just like a snob.
Yes. Or an
And
idiot.
so I would not like call him a snob exactly. It's like, no, he has
No.
high standards because yeah, he can fillet that salmon perfectly, and he just also taught you how to do it.
Yeah.
And so do it.
Yeah. So do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like, if I will call you a donkey because I can do it.
right.
And yeah. Yeah.
Well, the
Getting
show that I have the most experience with of all of his many properties is MasterChef. And that show is very heavy on what I would call the producer sabotage, because this is like a primetime TV, like one of the American shows. It's on network TV. It's very, very polished. You know, it's just clear that everything from the hairstyles to the wardrobes of the contestants is like super, super controlled.
Oh yeah.
Everyone is a character who has been told to like emphasize exactly who they are in ways that are like pretty obvious, where you can kind of feel the producer standing off to the side.
Yeah.
And so like he'll engage in that kind of stuff, but yeah, I feel like so that feels like his most insincere property of all the ones that I've watched, where it's less about like kind of the pedagogical aspect, where he's kind of like, this is how we do things well. It's much more about like, playing up
Yeah.
things for drama.
He knows the game. I
Yeah.
think that's and this is kind of, I would be curious to know how people perceive him in his own world. You know, like, does a person like Jacques Pepin, who I'm sure that Gordon Ramsay like reveres, but also probably considers himself to be a contemporary of, based on their skill level and like how they've come up in the world. They're both on TV a lot. They've taught a lot. But I wonder if like, I wonder if Jacques Pepin would be like, that guy's a jackass, and how Gordon would feel about that. You know what I mean? It just always makes me wonder, because I think with any person who is, I don't know. Here's the question: do you consider Gordon Ramsay a sellout?
No.
Yeah, nor do I. And I think the idea of being like a sellout is kind of a lame excuse for people who just can't do the thing quite as well. But I think it opens up a certain level of resentment, or I don't know, condescension from certain people, where it's like, if you're, I don't know a really good example, but it's like, I don't know, like, who's that dude from like Coldplay or whatever? You know, it's like, he's not a bad musician, and Coldplay's not like a bad band, but they are so produced, and it's like, clearly there's nothing behind the eyes there. It's all manufactured to a degree where it's like, their selling outness is probably looked down upon from like other bands that are like actually good and put a lot of more effort into the actual music than they do. But it's like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, there's
well, I mean, okay, like, to be a sellout, means that you have compromised your artistic or creative integrity in order to achieve certain financial ends.
Right.
And I don't know if Coldplay did that necessarily. It could be it was always in their plan to do something that's like super produced and kind of like soulless. But I at least think that with regard to a project like Coldplay, the issue isn't that it's like super produced, because I like plenty of music that's super produced. Like, I can get down with some, I don't know, Ariana Grande or whatever. But it's that Coldplay is intended to sound like it's a band that has sort of like artistic, like they're not just recording artists, like they're supposed to be a band that makes music. And
Yeah.
like you're supposed to conceive of them as being like, oh, they're like just this band that somehow made it, but they're not, in fact. And so that gives them kind of like a sellout feel. So it's like in Gordon's case, and this will actually come into a topic I want to talk about, which is Gordon's taste. I get the sense that just like his personal sense of what is good cooking and like what makes sense as a chef is just happens to be perfectly aligned with his, ambitions for being a celebrity chef on television.
Well, I guess that's kind of what I'm driving at, is that like, would another chef, I mean, like, I always feel weird about like naming names, because it's like you don't necessarily want to throw people under the bus because you don't know who they are. But it's like Wiley Dufresne is a popular chef. He's been on TV a few times. He doesn't have any shows that I'm aware of, but he's very well respected. He kind of ushered in this era of like molecular gastronomy. I just wonder, it's like, does Wiley Dufresne think like, Gordon's food, it's good, but it's like, whatever.
Right.
He's not that special. It's like anyone can make a halibut with like a broth, it just makes me wonder, like, in the world of people who are at his level, do they respect Gordon Ramsay? And his food, like, not the empire that he's built, because there is an empire of Gordon Ramsay products, and Fox is like, they're like buddies. But like, if you just go to Gordon Ramsay's steak or burger or whatever his big restaurant is in London, like, do they respect it in the same way they respect probably like Thomas Keller and Per Se or French Laundry, in the same way, where they're all like 3 Michelin star joints, of course they are, but.
Well, that's a really tough question. I mean, it's kind of like, does Cronenberg, respect Spielberg as much as he respects Fellini?
Right. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
And I think, I feel like at that level, like there are differences between them, like as auteurs, I guess, if we want to transfer that word into the world of chefery, and cuisine, where like, even though I think Gordon's taste and his like sensibilities as a chef like feel like way more mainstream than like a Thomas Keller apparently is, there's a personality to what he does. Like, I think Gordon Ramsay's food is identifiably his, where I think if either of us walked into some random restaurant, based on what they serve, we would probably be like, this feels like Gordon Ramsay-ish experience versus not. Like, I think we could, in the same way that you could walk into a movie, not see the credits and be like, this feels like a David Lynch movie.
Yeah. And it's that's an interesting point. And I guess at least in Gordon's case, it's French technique. Like, that seems to be his whole thing, like the plates look very nice, the flavors are on point, and everything's cooked properly. There's no mistakes on the plate. I'm sure that there are white tablecloths and flowers and sommeliers at every table, like that's probably how it operates. And I don't know, maybe this is just evolving too much from the conversation, but it's like, how much of that, like, how often do you even want that? Or how wouldn't you rather just kind of like get the spicy noodles from like the hole in the wall? That's like, I don't know. It's kind of not the point, but
I know what you're saying though. It's just a haute couture, versus like just everyday ready to wear stuff, right?
And
it should exist. Like, there should be a space in the world for these restaurants that are like pretty rarefied in what they offer. But then like most of the time, honestly, just want the spicy noodle bowl.
It's interesting too, I guess, looking at some of his other shows where, I mean, let's just like get out of the way that Gordon is not his Hell's Kitchen personality. Like, he's a really nice guy. I think he's obviously a big personality, but he's genuinely, he's not a bad dude, you know, like I think he is genuinely a good person in the world, and he probably has charities and all these different things. And so in his other properties, like I don't even know the name of it. It's just the one where he goes around the world and he cooks different foods. You get the sense that, to what you were asking about his taste, that he knows how he thinks it should be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that like 90% of the people would prefer it to be.
That is absolutely true. And
Yeah.
that's really, that kind of is really connected with this point that I was going to make about his taste, where I feel like he's very conservative. Like he has really high standards, like the quality must be top notch, the preparation and the craft must be top notch. And he has like things, you know, scallops and peas and microgreens like make appearances and stuff. But like fundamentally what he makes feels like fairly conservative. Like I can recall a couple of times on MasterChef through the seasons where, you know, the people who would ultimately go to the final rounds would make these dishes that were just like totally baller, and Gordon would just like would not get something about them. Like there was a contestant at one point who was a finalist, and he made this awesome looking kind of experimental dish where it was like some type of fish that had been like pan seared in a tofu skin wrap. It looked amazing. It was really creative and clever. It had some other interesting elements to it beyond that. But Gordon he just like couldn't, he just like wasn't processing the idea that tofu, you know, you're putting a tofu skin on this fish. And that just feels like a little bit like narrow minded to me. So,
Well, that, I mean, in that case, you have to wonder if, and maybe this plays into the sellout part of it, where it's like, I think sometimes Gordon plays dumb for the show.
Yeah.
Like even another example, and this is what I thought you were going to say, is there's some episode of MasterChef where they make donuts, and one of the guys makes a donut that has like, it's like a prosciutto donut. It's like maple and prosciutto.
Okay.
And like,
which at this point is like cliche in terms of
sure.
donuts.
Well, it's a little elevated because it's prosciutto instead of bacon. It's like we're so used to a bacon donut at this point. And it's like, we know as viewers, even in like 2011, like this is going to be an awesome donut. It's sweet, it's salty, it's going to be great. But Gordon does that thing where he's like, prosciutto? What? Like, what are you talking about on a donut? And then he's all up in arms about how it can't possibly be good. And then he eats it. He's like, it's delicious. And it's like, did you really, like, come on, you know it's going to be good. Like you can look at the food and know like that's going to be good.
Yeah, for sure. And he's a ham, I would say. He'll definitely like, he'll tell a story, he'll present a story, he'll act a story. That's a better word for it.
He's a total ham, but don't put that ham on the donut. God damn it. It's it is kind of, it's hard to say how set in his ways he actually is and how much he plays that up for the TV program itself. But there are certain things where, I don't know, I guess it's the interesting thing about food is that we all have our own tastes. Like, I don't like a crispy cookie. Maybe Gordon loves a crispy cookie, and maybe I make him the best cookie that I've ever made in my life, but he's like, but it should be crisp. And it's like, no, it shouldn't. It should be chewy.
I mean, his well-known, perfect scrambled eggs recipe is like is a great example of this exact thing, where I would say that like his style of scrambled eggs is preferred by probably like 1% or less of like the average person. Like it's like super, from the average person is like, this is like undercooked, like egg slop is how they would probably perceive it. I like scrambled eggs that way. I also like them in your classic, like kind of like, crusty diner way as well.
Well, it's I know we've said this before. And I mean, even just probably like 10 minutes ago, it's like, yes, that is a good thing. And I recognize that it is good, but 9 times out of 10, is it what I want? No. And am I going to go through the effort of like making it that way? Probably not. Like I'll probably just make like, an over easy egg. It's fine. I think there was another recent one where somebody was making like a chicken parm, and one of the contestants was from Staten Island, and he's like, I'm going to crush this. And he makes him a chicken parm, and he brings it to him, and Ramsay's like, the sauce, it's great, but it needs to be blended. It's too chunky. And the guy in his like 2-camera thing, he's like, that's proper marinara, man. Like, you don't know everything. Like, that's how it should be. And it's like, on the one hand, that Ramsay wants it a certain way, but on the other, it's like, that guy's probably right. It's like, it doesn't have to be
this way. Yeah, the mashed potatoes are another thing that he does a certain way. I feel like
Right.
mashed potatoes and yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, at that point, it just kind of gets to the whole question of just like, what is taste and why do people even have different opinions about things? Like it kind of makes
Yeah.
it all goes back to childhood trauma or something. Like one day a potato fell in my head and I never liked potatoes or something,
Well, yeah, have one bad experience eating anything. I couldn't do garlic for a really long time because I uh I had just gotten over onions. I was pretty young. I think I was probably like 10 or something. 10 is like one of those ages where it's like you are no longer only doing like chicken fingers.
Yeah.
And you're moving into more adult food or whatever, and you're getting used to things and being brave about broccoli or whatever. And I had finally gotten to the idea of being okay with onions in like tomatoes, like a pasta or something, like a really proper marinara. And because I had finally realized, oh, those are pretty good, but I didn't know any better. I was trying to prove to our mom that I was like, oh, look, I'm good with this. And I pulled out what I thought was an onion, but it was a whole thing of garlic. And it was like, you know how it is. It's like, I probably would have liked the garlic if that's what I knew I was about to have. But when you set your mouth to assume you're going to have one thing and then it's not that thing, oh man,
especially the kid, it's like, it's a traumatic. It's like this foreign object you didn't expect.
Yeah, short circuit, can't deal.
I mean, I remember, our dad used to make and still makes French toast quite often. It's like really basic recipe, right? You just, all you need is like this classic French toast. You need your bread, you need your egg mixture, and you need like some cinnamon, and boom, you basically got it, right?
Yeah.
So he would make it and whatever. But at that time, when I was a kid, I like really, really didn't want any like trace of egg, really. Like I wanted French toast, but I didn't want any like sense of egginess through the toast. And I would be like, can you make it this way? And I don't know what the hell our dad did to like accommodate that, because it's really hard. But it's so weird that like just the idea like, oh no, there's an egg, like it's not supposed to be there, like I want it to be like sweet, crispy French toast. I don't want a sense of egg. But like nowadays, kind of if you told me I'm gonna make you like a real sloppy French toast, that's like super eggy, I'd be, man, that sounds great. Like serve it up. I don't know. It's just weird how my boundaries as far as food like have expanded, where like there's almost no food that I don't like or won't eat. Like as long as it's not alive, like, because I just think that's ridiculous. I think it's an adventure, I guess is maybe how I would put it.
Yeah, I'll try just about anything. That doesn't mean I'm going in for a second bite if I don't like it, but I'll try just about anything. I mean, what's cool to me about Gordon is just that I truly believe that he is the reason that I am so interested and as good of a cook as I am now, because I think he was like kind of the start for me of like trying harder with making things that sounded interesting and also being more adventurous with certain kinds of food by watching those old YouTube videos that he had that were, from whatever channel it was. And it's just kind of amazing how if you have no training whatsoever, you really, it's trial and error. It's like not understanding what a pan is for. Like I'm sure that I have made more than a few eggs that I tried to do like over easy in like, an all clad or like a pot or something, like not a nonstick, something where it's like, it doesn't matter how good you are as a chef, like you'll never be able to do that. And it's like, those sorts of trial and error that come in. But you also, I think the first time I ever had like medium pork was that time we made that pistachio pork recipe that was like the first Gordon Ramsay thing that you and I ever did was like that, I don't even know, it was like a pork loin or something that was like,
I don't remember exactly.
Pistachio encrusted, and we had it and it was medium. And I even was like, is that okay? Like, are we even allowed to do that? Like, aren't we going to die if we eat that? And it was delicious. And now, after years of practice and like actually just cooking because I need to eat, all of the things that people seem to fuck up on something like Hell's Kitchen, I'm kind of like, oh, you're such a donkey. Like, it's so easy. Like, it's like, come on, it's a fucking scallop, like 2 minutes. It's like not hard. So yeah, I don't know. It's funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can remember when I first, started my cooking journey in college. And I know that I literally did not like season things when I cooked them. I was vegan at that time. I would make like curries or whatever using like, curry powder, curry paste, whatever, would not add salt, just wouldn't. period. Because I didn't realize, no, you need salt. Like, to me, salt was like, oh, it's this thing you add to cooked food to like make it saltier. And it didn't occur to me until a certain part, like, oh no, you actually have to add that while you're cooking so that the food actually has like an innate saltiness so that you can taste
Well,
it.
yeah, it magnifies flavors. It's like,
but it's just so weird. But I think like somebody like Gordon Ramsay, who, like I said earlier, there's like a pedagogical aspect to him where like everything he does is somehow instructive. It's kind of like, this is how you do this the right way. And I think that's in contrast to a lot of other like reality TV kind of like game shows, even ones that are like about some craft, or there's this underlying sense that you are learning how to do something well by example, by like watching this person either try and fail to do it or try and succeed, or just watch Gordon's demonstration of it.
Yeah, I think some of the best episodes of any of his television are when he does the specific lesson of how to do one particular thing. And I think that if there's any show that does that best, it's MasterChef, because there's at least a couple of times where it's like, I'm going to show you how to poach a lobster and break it down perfectly, and like, that's so informative, even from the point of view of not seeing him actually do it from start to finish, but just understanding just little basics here and there. And you got to respect, I don't know, this is maybe a conversation that's deeper than this, because it kind of gets into the idea of innate skill and work that's been put in, where I think a good example is probably like vocals. You can work extremely hard at being an accomplished singer, and you can get very good over a period of time, but inherently you are born with a certain like a certain range and a certain timbre that some people have and some people don't. And that's not to say one is better than the other, but some people are born with it and some people are not. And one of those things I feel like Gordon has, or at least appears that he has, is an incredible palate. And he's demonstrated that on a couple of shows. And to me, that's always like the most fascinating thing, where it's like, he'll say like, make a dish, and then he'll eat it, and he'll tell you every single thing that's in there. And it's like, some are obvious, like that's chicken, but he'll get in and be like, oh, anise, I taste star anise or something like that. And that's just always, I guess he's just blessed with that. I'm sure he can refine that.
Well, it's like having perfect pitch or any other thing that just kind of gives you a natural advantage over others who are trying to do something.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much more I have to say about Gordon Ramsay. I got to be honest.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I think we've covered all the major points for him. Let's just go into the review, like the verdict section.
Yeah, I think my verdict on Gordon Ramsay is, I think that he's the perfect step 2. He might even be the step 0 and the step 2 for cooking, because if you are not interested at all in cooking, you could watch one of his programs and perhaps become interested in cooking. So that's step 0, is just like the initial interest. And then I think step 1 is trying to start to cook a few things, which I think Gordon is, he tends to be more advanced than that. Like, I think that his videos are with an understanding that you have to like heat up the oil in the pan before you put the meat in. Like, I think, some people don't know that. They'll just like, put the meat in the pan. Okay. Oh, I burned it. Or it's like gray and disgusting. So it's like, he could start your interest in it, but I think he's the perfect step 2 to get you more confident and into cooking better for yourself. But then I think there's a point in which you can outgrow what he's able to offer via like online lessons. I'm sure his masterclass is really good, but I think when it comes down to like flavors or techniques or just understanding the proper way to do things, I really think Jacques Pepin is like the most accessible and best for like, oh, I'm going to start doing things like making a fish mousse or something. Like, you never see Gordon doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a little bit too out there for like his normal sensibilities.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say, yeah, I think that he's a great starting point, because it's entertaining foremost, but I think because he gives you that sense of standards, that sense that like there is a way to do this that's, it's not the universally right way, but it's the way that's like 99% of the time it's probably the way to do it. And so he'll teach you those fundamentals, but he's also like able to do things at an elevated level, so you can kind of like, you can really get some advanced stuff from watching what he does.
Yeah.
Cool.